Thank you, Barry.
Yep.
Our other co-chair for access to programs is here. Aaron, are you able to provide the update for that subcommittee?
Sure. Yeah. We had our quarterly or our subcommittee meeting yesterday. We had a presentation from URSA around childcare availability, and they showed us some awesome maps. Talked a little bit about the data variables they used, and we look forward to getting to talk to them a little bit more in the future on that.
Thanks, Aaron. At this point, if anyone has any questions for any of the subcommittee co-chairs, you can come off mute or add those to the chat. And then we're going to move over to Shantae with OCDEL updates.
Good morning. Good afternoon. Sorry, everyone. I'll be giving the budget highlights, and then I believe that some other members of the team will be giving some of the other OCDEL updates. So next slide. So just really wanted to dive into a small budget overview, understanding that our 24-25 budget does include an increase for the subsidy base rates to the 75th percentile, and that goes into effect January 1st, 2025. We did have a $2 million increase for Head Start supplemental assistance programs. Our pre-K counts programs received an increase, increasing the cost per slot from 10,000 to 10,500 for full-time slots, and from 5,000 to 5,250 for part-time slots. And for early intervention, we did see an infant toddler increase of 9.134 million, and then a preschool increase of 32 million. So I know it's a little confusing with the comma, but it's a 32 million, close to $33 million increase for preschool early intervention.
Thanks, Shantae. If there's any questions, feel free to put those in the chat. We're going to move on to CQI, and Aaron is going to walk us through that.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. So OCDEL will be doing a CQI award again in 24-25. If you're a provider, you've probably seen an email about that a couple weeks ago. And providers that are eligible for CQI award should expect a letter coming shortly, probably this week or next, letting them know about their eligibility status. So this first slide here just kind of reiterates what we brought from the first CQI award from last year. The eligibility requirements basically remain the same. A provider needs to be in good standing with certification, have a regular certificate of compliance, a STAR 2, 3, or 4 designation without a suspension status. And then we also want to make sure our providers that received any COVID relief funds or a CQI award last year, that they've completed all their reporting requirements associated with that. And then finally, we have they can, obviously, if a STAR 2 or 3 or 4 provider owns a lien or liability to the Commonwealth, and some kind of example would be like a back tax, they would need to have that rectified before we would send an eligibility letter. You can go to the next slide, Nano. This slide is just showing the different categories that we made available for the CQI award to be spent on. CQI, just like it was last year, it's extremely broad, but providers can spend on a lot of different categories, including personnel retention bonuses, things to improve the program, things to just keep the program running at their current STAR designation, as well as any accreditation costs that could be associated with approved alternate pathways that OCDEL has designated. So that's just kind of the broad buckets that we have, but obviously if there are providers that have questions about that, please contact your ELRC and we'll get an answer. So you can go to the next slide. This is simple. Just like many CCDF funds, quality funds, there are certain unallowable expenses: alcohol, purchase of vehicles, any type of major construction where you're either creating a foundation for something or tearing down a load-bearing wall or anything like that remains ineligible. And that we have also just a couple stipulations about professional development as it relates to Rising Stars Teach, CDA vouchers, and so forth. And you can go to the next slide, Meta.
That's all I have for CQI.
Oh, okay.
But if there's any questions for Aaron, you can certainly come off mute or add to the chat.
Yeah, I will. I'll put my email in the chat. If there's any providers on SAC that have any feedback about CQI, just your thoughts, love to hear them. Feel free to send me an email, but I'll put that in the chat. Thanks.
Thanks, Aaron. Next up, AS Adelanma is going to give us an update on the certification regulation rewrite project. We refer to that as the impact project, and AS is the project manager.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to see everyone this afternoon. The impact project is going forward in full gear. As you may have known, the whole chapters reg 3270, 3280, and 3290 are now being rewritten as 3220 and 3310, which is for centers and family child care regulations. Now, this reg package originally, went through rigorous, review, both internally, externally, and also with the Department of DHS legal. And based on that feedback, from legal, the OCDEL management and team now decided to do an in-depth review of the reg. So in that wise, we did put together some expert, certification managers and other experts, within OCDEL, to do an in-depth review of the reg. So that in-depth review is currently going on. And as you can see on the slide, now the reg package will now go through these strategic milestones that are detailed. These are just high-level strategic milestones that the reg package will have to go through until its final publication. So you can see that we intended that the in-depth review be finalized by October of this year, and then it will go back to legal for review, and we hope that is finalized by the beginning of next year. Then the very critical milestone, it will go to the DHS Secretary for approval, by February 2025. Then governor policy and budget approval by April 2025. Then to Attorney General and Attorney General approval. Then the legislative reference bureau. And then, comes to another critical moment, where we have the public comments, we have IAC, and that is intended, for November 2025, after which the reg package will now be published by December 2026, with it going into effect 1 year later in 2027, with the exception of the training or the requirement for education, which will be a year after that. So that is just the synopsis of what's going on with Impact Project. As I said earlier on, we are moving forward, in full gear. If there's any question, you're more than welcome to contact me or Neta. Thank you.
Thank you, AS. Again, if you have questions, you can come off mute or add to the chat. Next, we're going to hear from Nia with Bureau of Early Learning Resource Center Operations.
I have a quick question.
Please, Carol.
So with regard to this process, if there are proposed changes during the public comment period in September, November, are those taken into account, and does it have to go through the whole process again? How does this work?
Yeah, if there's a the public comment period, when that comes back, then we're gonna review that, and then it goes to IAC, so they also review the public comments, and based on that, it's not gonna go back, but we just have to make changes, based on the comment, or make modification, whatever it takes for us to to get it to the good, good set for it to be published and approved.
Carol, I think A has answered your question, but you still look like you might have a follow-up question.
No, he did, but the
Okay.
follow-up is, whenever changes get made, it will be good for people to see what the changes are that got made after they get made again prior to the end, and I'm just wondering if there's any opportunity for that. I get there's going to be public comment. Is everybody going to be able to see the comments that were made and any proposed changes that may be made based on those comments or not?
So typically, and AS, please correct me if I'm wrong. So typically when the comments are made, we do have to post our responses to those comments publicly. So you will get an opportunity to see them, but rewriting the draft and reposting the draft does not necessarily happen. It will go to IRC and then you'll be able to see it that way, if that makes sense.
Okay, perfectly. We get to see the comments and the responses to the comments. That's helpful. Thank you.
Sorry, AS.
Shante, do you mind also touching on Kelly Brown put in the chat, what happens between November 25 and December 26th? And what I'm guessing that why does it take a year? Is that essentially the question?
Is that the question, Kelly? So the public comment period is not a short period. It does take, I don't want to say a long time, but it does take some time. So typically this is how even our other reg package, our subsidy regs were just recently passed. They were not passed right away. There also was some time for IRC to be able to review it, for people to be able to submit comments. And we also wanted to be thoughtful around not having the regs go into effect immediately after publication. So that's where some of that time frame and that delay is coming from. Kelly, I hope that answers your question.
And in addition to that, Shante, there are still other strategic process that the reg will have to go through this time, within this time frame, that are not just put in here, but there's other elements, that the reg process has to go through.
So Kelly, I'm not sure if that answered your question, but please let us know if you need further clarification.
No, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, Nia, I think we're ready for your updates.
Oh, good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to give you a few updates from the Bureau of Early Learning Resource Center operations. Netta, can I get the next slide, please? As many on this call know, our ELRCs went through a procurement process. We go through it every 5 years, and we have new grantees effective 7/1. Most of our grantees continued on, but we had a few expansions of grantees into new regions. On this side, the noticeable change is that Region 1 and 2 are now covered by Northwest Institute of Research. Can I have the next slide, please? And then on this slide, you will see that Public Health Management Corporation is now our grantees for regions 15, 18, and 19. Previously, in the last grant cycle, they were only the grantee for region 19. Excuse me. So, speaking of region 18, we wanted to address a concern that happened with our providers in region 18. In July, OCDEL became aware that all of our providers in Region 18 were receiving paper checks instead of their normal ACH payments, which caused a lot of disruption to the provider community. They had been used for the last 4 years, receiving their payments direct deposit. So, that was an interruption to their normal receiving of their invoice payments. As time progressed, we started hearing more and more feedback from the provider community, and it was brought to our awareness that, despite issues that may have gone on with the mail system, a lot of providers had not received their payments. And from from that feedback, OCDEL decided to take action. So from there, OCDEL decided to move forward with a process to try to put payments in the hands of providers directly, because we just needed to move to try to make the providers as whole as possible. In August, we were able to provide a first round of provider payments to providers who had submitted to attestations to us, let us know that they had not received their June payment. But we still have some providers that we still need to make whole. We are working out a payment. We're working out a process right now to move forward with the second round of payments for those providers who still need to receive their monies for June. It's been an all hands on deck process, and we're all working very diligently to make sure every provider that submitted an invoice for June receives their proper payment. So as this process continues, I'm sure there'll be more updates to the field, but that's currently where we are now, and trying to locate all those providers and make sure they have the payments for the services they need. I will pause for just a quick second in case if anyone has questions for me in regards to this issue. All right, well, fantastic. Okay. My next update was, yes, well, thank you. Thank you, Carol, for pointing that out in the chat. It is in regards to our former grantee, not our current grantee, PHNC. All right, our next update for ELRC operations is that we had our first directors meetings with the new grantees on July 25th. It was a time for us to all come together and, look forward to this next grant cycle. We were able to make some introductions for the new grantees who have signed on as of July 1. ELRCs were presented with a lot of highlights and updates for OCDEL program offices. I'm not going to go into detail because I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, because some of that information will be presented to you later. We also had a presentation from OIM friends, Office of Income Maintenance, about our Compass program. Our ELRCs are Compass community partners, meaning that they are there to help our clients navigate any one of our programs that they can receive through Compass, be it food stamps, medical assistance, SNAP, where our ELRCs are supposed to be assisting to align with the Commonwealth's no wrong door philosophy. So you can come to us and you can receive assistance from for any of those programs. And lastly, they got a presentation from our Keystone Scholars program, as they discuss the children's savings accounts. So again, I'm gonna pause for questions if anyone else has any other questions for ELRC Ops, but if not, I will swing it back to Netta.
Thanks, Nia. If there's any questions, let us know. Otherwise, we're going to move on to Louisa.
Thanks, Netta. Good afternoon, everyone. As stated, I'm Louisa Oliva-Wolf. I'm the Director for the Bureau of Early Learning Policy and Professional Development. Happy to be here today. I see some familiar faces on the call, so always good to have a little ECE community in here. My updates today really aim to cover some of the priorities that my team and I have identified as I near my third month here at OCDEL. Yes, I did, 3 months. And then we're also going to talk about some of the progress related to our state plan. So our current Bureau priorities, these are sort of the overarching big picture, and I'm going to go into these in more detail in the following slides, but I just wanted everybody to have these sort of concisely on this page. So our state plan includes a variety of implementation and submission targets. Our co-administrator, along with Shantae for our state plan, is Jessica Sands. She serves as the Bureau Division Chief for one of the departments under my bureau. She's done an incredible job crafting this, supporting the work, and moving it forward, along with other support from bureau directors and members of the OCDEL team. Planning and appropriate implementation for our state plan will be crucial to our success, and it spans anywhere from this Friday, which you'll understand in a bit, all the way to 2 years from now to implement the final rule. Our initial response and comments were received from the field. Those are now posted and available. There is a link there. I assume folks have access to that link. If not, Netta will help me out. And those include comments that we received in Spanish. And so that's super important, and that will continue. Once our final plan is accepted by the Office of Child Care, we will also submit that for translation and provide it for viewing. Oops, something happened there.
I was trying to get your link.
Oh,
and
no, you're good. I was like, how did I do that?
Yeah. Go back into presentation mode, and then you'll be good
Yeah,
to
you
go.
can do the next slide then.
There you go.
Perfect. Thanks, Netta. So some of the areas of the state plan directly address the Child Care Development Fund final rule. So we've done a lot of work within the office to move the work of the state plan quickly, but there are items that really require additional time due to system constraints, policy implementation, and procedure. So these are the items in the state plan that we have included in a waiver. So essentially requesting additional time to implement these. And I'm going to go into them in a little bit more detail. So the first one is paying providers prospectively. So for us to be able to adhere to the CCDF final rule, we need to make significant modifications to our Pelican CCW system. We'll need to reevaluate opportunities for ELRC payment reconciliation process. We need to make updates to the system, provider invoicing, and some of the logic behind the systems. And then, of course, we need to have policies regarding absences. We need to have policies regarding how to implement this work. And so all of these changes make it challenging for us to meet this any quicker, especially those substantial systems within Pelican. So a waiver has been requested for implementation for August 2026 for the first one. Enrollment-based payment sort of goes hand in hand with prospective payment for providers. This is, again, a significant modification to our Pelican CCW system. We'll have to examine some of the different processes for reconciliation, for invoicing, and again, some of the logic in the background of Pelican CCW. So we're currently, we have this in the trajectory of work, but system updates take time. And so this will follow the same timeline as the paying providers prospectively. For contracted slots for infants, toddlers, children with disabilities, and underserved geographic areas, any kind of addition to contracted slot initiatives have to be proposed within the state budget process. And so we recognize that this is important, but we also don't have additional funding to support this. So it will, again, need to be included in the next budget. So there is plan to review and to propose the addition of these slots into the DHS budget for 25-26. And so that will continue and we'll have to go through approval. If we are unsuccessful in completing that previous kind of budget request for 25-26, then it will have to occur in 26-27. Sorry, I'm scrolling my notes. The next one is consumer education for full monitoring reports. Currently, we post all of the areas of non-compliance on our certification licensing system and provide these. The final rule is requesting that we post both compliances and non-compliances. So again, there will need to be substantial changes made to the system in order to accommodate this. And so this is for Pelican CLS. And those modifications need to occur. We also need to do some consumer education around what do these reports mean and make sure that families can use them to make good choices about where to move their children. So a waiver for this has been requested for June 30th, 2025. Prohibit family copays above 7% of income. Currently, all of our copays are assessed between 3 and 7% of income. However, we do have a $5 minimum copay, and that's written in both statute and subsidized childcare regulations. And also, our Pelican system is designed to have that minimum payment of $5. And so this change requires system changes in Pelican to reduce that base level from $5 to $0. And so that will require some additional system changes. And we expect that to be completed by February 2025. For pre-K counts and HISAB, you heard earlier there were increases for both of these grantees, so we're happy to do that, and we'll be moving forward with implementation and with additional guidance for our grantees. And this year was not there were no open RFAs. This is a continuation year grant. And our department and partners at the PAK have identified a need to be more intentional around the support that we're providing to both our HISAP and pre-K counts grantees. So we've started office hours. We held pre-K counts office hours 2 weeks ago. I wrote this last week, so 2 weeks ago, so it's my fault, and had a really great response from the providers. There were over 400 people on that call, and they were very appreciative of that kind of connection to OCDEL and PAK. And we'll be doing the same with HISAP, and we'll be hosting that call with Tracy Duarte, and that'll be on September 10th. So again, the goal is to just have more visibility with the grantees and to answer questions that they might have, and also to help them build community with each other, because that's very important in the ECE world. The other part of this is that we're collecting professional development needs with this group. We want to make sure that the information, meetings, trainings that we're providing them are really responsive to the needs of the HISAP and pre-K providers. And so we've issued out a survey. There's one for HISAP and there's one for pre-K, and we'll be reviewing some of the feedback that we received there so that we can be really intentional in our planning moving forward. All right, fun times. This is my favorite part. So prior to coming to OCDEL, I helped to develop a workforce training program for the community action agency I was working for. And I've also been the director in a few centers a long time ago, but still, you know, it stays with you. And I experienced the challenges of the ECE workforce, right? And certainly we have continued to see those challenges be exacerbated by COVID, by low pay, you know, you name it. So the provision of PDO, Rising Stars, and Teach is a really great way to stabilize our workforce, improve the earning potential for folks, and reduce barriers to people who might not have had access to higher education. But in reviewing these programs and discussing them and learning a little bit more about them, I had a really strong desire to dig deeper and to better understand these. So we know that all of these goals that you see on the slide are true for all programs. You move forward for me, Netta. But we know overlap exists, right? And so we want to make sure that there's opportunity, that we can hear and recognize what are some of the challenges, what are some of the process adaptations that maybe need to be made. But we also assume that we all have the same vision, right? We're helping ECE professionals increase their earning potential, advance those degrees, and in turn improve the learning and support that happens in the classroom for children and their families. So the approach to thinking about this work, at least initially, is through human-centered design, which is an offset of design thinking. It allows us to empathize with folks that are mostly connected to the work. It allows us to really define that problem and think through what are some innovative ideas that we can think of, not for people, but with people that are impacted. And so we've been doing a lot of conversations. We've been having a lot of meetings. We've been having a lot of feedback sessions, both formal and informal. There's lots of stakeholders involved with this work, right? There's ELRCs, there are providers, there's ECE professionals, there's institutes of higher education, there are children, there are families, the list goes on. So it's a really sort of layered process because of the amount of folks that are involved, either directly or indirectly with this work. So as Nia alluded, in our June 25th meeting, you can move it, Netta. In our June 25th meeting with the ELRC directors, we started to gather some feedback. So I'm sharing the questions that we used in that, and we will use these questions as we continue to have these conversations so that our data can be synthesized really well. So the first is empathizing, really trying to understand what are those frustrations? What are the strengths? What are the things that are working really well? Who can we celebrate, right, with this work? But what are some opportunities for us to intervene both quickly, and what can we think about sort of as like the long-term goal? Thanks. Next, we wanted to understand the root causes. So it's easy for us to say, like, I have a problem with X, but really digging in and understanding where does the beginning of that problem start. So some of you might be familiar with upstream thinking and sort of that idea, right? Like thinking, what is the root cause? What is creating this issue, and how do we address that issue or problem versus identifying small things that we can put a Band-Aid on, really trying to find the bigger picture. Next is ideation, my favorite, because you can dream, right? Like if you want to dream, if you can think about How do we use these programs to truly provide the support to the workforce that's needed and all the stakeholders that are mentioned earlier? What do we need to do? What does it look like? How can we think through this? How can we be creative in this work? And so those are sort of the few steps that we've identified to just listen. And again, we're just listening at this point, and gathering feedback, because it's really important to move this work forward that we make smart decisions. So some of the next steps that we have identified are observing, listening, and reviewing. So there's available data out there that we have looked at. We certainly gathered a lot of data during the ELRC directors meeting. Love to hear from some of you. I know I have a couple of meetings with a few folks, and these can be informal and formal settings, right? Last week, I was in a meeting in York for ECHO, which if you're not familiar with, check it out, it's really cool. And there were some providers there, and they were talking about the challenges of going back to school. And so I asked them, like, tell me what you think about PDOs and teach. And so that was a great sort of informal opportunity. In October, we will be also doing a feedback listening session at the ECE Summit. Again, just garnered to understand what are the complexities with some of these issues and programs. And if there's opportunities like this in your community, I hope you will reach out to me or to Netta and to let us know, and we'll make every effort to listen. The other part of this is the ISRA team at Penn State has been gathering specific workforce feedback and having some conversations, interviews with participants, with providers, with IHEs and other stakeholders. And so it might take some time for us to dig into these and to really understand, but there might also be opportunities for us to identify, hey, maybe if we market it this way, we could gather a different result, right? Like there might be some things that we could do that would be quick wins. Last thing that was on my priority list, but I don't have a slide for it, so I just want to talk about it briefly, is STARS. So when I started at OCDEL, I understand that there was some work that was done around STARS and thinking through what are those standards and how do we designate programs and can we think through it. And we've had a lot of conversations sort of internally about what does quality mean, right? And NACCE is also unveiling an updated process to accreditation set to debut next week. And so there's a lot going on in the quality rating system world. I had the opportunity to attend the BUILD conference a few weeks ago and got to hear a lot about that. There's also an added layer of and lens of equity within the world of quality. So we have been discussing sort of that internally, and we're really, really on the early phases of that, thinking through like, what is our philosophy? What's our definition of quality in early learning communities? And we'll be working very closely with the ELRC operations team, and we'll continue to update this group as I'm able. I know I talked a lot, so I'm sorry.
That's
and
okay.
I think there were questions coming up in the chat, but I can't do two things at once like that.
Yep, that's okay. We're going to pause for those questions now.
Thank you.
Yep. Shantae, did you want to speak to Beck's question on insurance?
Did we answer Steve's question? Steve asked, do we know the amount that will be requested in the budget for contracted slots? If we did not,
there.
I will certainly start there. So the answer to your question, because I am always as transparent and honest as possible, not at this time. So we will certainly be engaging in some ongoing conversations around all of the contracted slots models that are required per the final rule. I think Louisa went over all of the different models. Right now, the only one that Pennsylvania is implementing and is being acknowledged, I'll say it that way, by the Office of Child Care would be infant toddler contracted slots. The other slot models, particularly the one related to geographically underserved areas, I think we'd like to be able to share some of our work that's being done by the Penn research team around those underserved areas and where we'll be doing some of our preschool development block grant work. I was about to say PDG, so just so everyone knows what that acronym is for. But really, there are some other things that go into it before we ask specifically for any budget amounts for any of the contracted slots models, because we want to be thoughtful around what we're already doing. And so we'll start engaging folks in those conversations shortly. Becky, we have also heard feedback about insurance companies utilizing monitoring reports. We have heard that from providers. We have heard that as early as maybe a year and a half ago. So we do understand that. However, we cannot partner with any one particular insurance agency. What we can do and what we have been doing is partnering with the insurance department, the Pennsylvania Insurance Department, to be able to figure out what mechanisms we can be thoughtful around about to support our childcare providers. And so those conversations have been ongoing. So it's been DHS policy office, the insurance department, OCDEL. We also had a conversation spearheaded with some of the commissioners from the Early Learning Investment Commission that specialize in insurance, and really trying to partner with some of our advocacy partners to be thoughtful around things that can be done to support providers in that space. So first and foremost is really getting the insurance department to understand the implications that sharing these full reports, like what it has on the insurance industry. It was never our intention to post these reports and it be utilized in or a penalty against the providers in any way. So we've been working with the insurance department to really share that message across the Commonwealth. However, what I know, the question that Diane had is there any way that OCDEL could help? We've been trying to partner with agencies to be thoughtful around sharing some of a shared service model, because that was some of the feedback that we heard, is that there is strength in numbers almost. And so when there is a shared service model provided, agencies will tend to cover more of a group of people rather than individual people. And so really just getting folks to really understand the value of shared service, and then trying to partner with agencies or insurance companies that continue to offer and support childcare providers. And I know that number has been slimming, but it's been really hard for OCDEL to get involved directly just because we are not the actual insurance industry, but we've been really trying to partner with the insurance department here in the Commonwealth, and in addition to some local legislators who really want to move the needle on this much larger issue around childcare and liability insurance. And the contracted slides. Actually, Kristen, I think that this is an opportunity for us to look at many things, not just the cost of care and basing it on the cost of care, but also some general requirements that are outlined in the final rule. So just noting, and I think Louisa might have touched on this, one of the things that the final rule requires that we do is that we stop paying based off of attendance and start paying based on enrollment, right? And that's really what a contracted slot model looks at. Is it's a continuous flow of income for a particular slot or a particular program ongoing. And so I think it gives us the opportunity to kind of sit down and look at a bevy of things, not just the cost of care, but also meeting those requirements and really changing and reshaping the way that our current fee base is structured. So these will be some ongoing conversations. We do not intend to have these conversations in any type of silo. But really it's an opportunity to look at multiple things that are happening in our system and within our sector. So, Lee, I see your hand, so I will be quiet.
Thank you. Okay, I was just wondering if PACA or any of the statewide organizations had an interest in looking at this insurance issue to see if there was work that could be done to help providers. I know that OCDEL can't do it, but could other organizations outside of OCDEL tackle this issue?
I'll be quiet and let the organizations speak for themselves, because I know that some of them have done some things around this issue. So I will shush, maybe they're on a call, but I want them to speak for themselves, but I know that some of them have, so.
Thank you.
Are any of the folks on the call today to be able to speak to that?
Yeah, I will only say that, we are looking to see if we can get, we know that there have been other models across the country, if we can get someone who is able to take a look at that for us and see what it would take to implement something similar, what the best model might be here in Pennsylvania, what it would take to implement something like that here. So we're just in the early stages of trying to figure out how we can get somebody to do an organization to kind of take a look at that for us. And this is the first time I'm saying this publicly too, so.
So I'll also share publicly that we had a very good relationship with one of the largest insurance brokers in the country, and we've been trying to move or suggest that our members who are having insurance problems contact them, but there has been little uptake, and so they're backing out of that relationship. So I'm just going to be real with you. So while this is a concern and we know people are concerned, I'm concerned that they're not taking action, that they're waiting, and so some opportunities that were there then dry up. So I
would say the same thing too, Diane, even about surveys. We tried to issue a survey, the advocacy community tried to do a survey, and the responses to those surveys have been very little. So it often seems like we are elevating an issue that is only important to a very small population of people, and that's not true. Childcare impacts everyone on this call in some way, shape, or form. And so it's very hard for us to say that on our own, and then we're reaching out to the community that needs us, and we're not getting the responses that we need. I'm sorry, Diane, I didn't mean
No, that's it exactly. I mean, we know it's an issue, but I think there's a tremendous amount of fear that people don't want to let other people know that this is a problem. But unless we let people know, then our opportunities are not there to kind of leverage that issue. And so, I mean, we found this out just a week and a half ago when we had a conversation with our insurance folks. So yeah, we have to get people to stand up. We know it's an issue because if you don't have insurance, you can't operate your program, and we know it's expensive, but we can't do anything. I mean, OCDEL can't do anything. The advocacy organizations can't do anything if we don't have the real numbers to be able to say, here's the problem. So yeah, okay.
All right, it sounds like it slowed down, and I think we've touched on everything in the chat. If we missed a question, definitely speak up. Otherwise, we're going to move on to Ruby Martin, Director for Certification Services.
Hello, community. How is everyone? Next slide, please, Netta. Bureau of Certification has been very busy. I just celebrated my 1 year with CERT and with OCDEL, so I'm excited to talk about some relationship building strategies that we are putting in place for the benefit of both providers and our certification team. Over the last year, our quality assurance crew, which is some members of our operations team, and myself have been on several visits in the field with CERT reps, getting to know the certification team, getting to know providers, finding out what trends are out there, what areas of support we can provide, what resources we can provide when our CERT reps are in the field. Those visits have been wonderful. I'm viewing things that are possible inconsistencies across the field, and making sure that we address those immediately between regions. So we're excited to say we're going to continue to do that. Our quality assurance team is going to continue to go out on monitoring visits with our to assure quality assurance. And I'll be doing 1 visit a year in at least 2 regions moving forward, just to make sure that we're keeping ourselves connected out there. And we're also increasing training for certification reps when they start and ongoing around things like customer service and meeting the needs of providers and interacting in a positive professional today. We're also going to be discussing those consistencies on regular calls between regions where CERT reps can talk to other CERT reps and figure out where inconsistencies might exist, and doing some real work around making sure we can land on a common answer to those interpretative regulations. And again, providing supports and resources as TA for providers out there. You want to progress? Thank you. We're also part of the enterprise licensing system updates for DHS. They're developing a new system for DHS licensing agencies. And this will be a rollout over the next 2 years. This system will be for all entities that do any DHS licensing. So in addition to certification, it'll also assist with complaints. So if people have complaints, it'll go into the system, and extensive reporting capabilities will be able to be accessed from this system. There's a listserv that you could join, and I think Netta will probably put that in the chat, or Colin, so that you can see that. Please join this listserv so that you get all of the current updates of the enterprise licensing system. This is not replacing Pelican, but it is going to be in addition to Pelican, and all licensing information will be in this ELS system. And again, this is a slow rollout over the next several years. You do not need to worry about this right now. Right, go ahead and progress. So we're also looking forward to our consolidated eligibility letter system, the CELS, which is what we'll refer to it moving forward. This is the system that will consolidate all of the background checks for providers. A new employee starts, you go into the CELS portal, you enter the data, and then it kind of fills all applications for all the background checks. You get one consolidated eligibility letter from those background checks. And then that background check eligibility letter will go into the staff file. So this is the go live date is September 7th for this. Providers will receive a announcement along with training materials and a webinar, a videotaped webinar. And that will all happen around September 7th. The go live date is not the date that you will be necessarily jumping right into the system, but you will have until January 1st to become experts at using the CELS system before you will be required to utilize it for new employees. Any questions about any of that? I know I threw a lot at you in a very quick time there.
If anything comes up, you can certainly reach out to Ruby, myself, add to the chat, or come off mute. I believe we have Lisa Parker next. Early intervention. Go ahead, sorry.
No, that's good. Thanks, Netta. Lisa Parker, the Bureau Director for Early Intervention Services and Family Supports. And I just have 2 updates. One is to keep the SAC informed of the supports that we have out there for early intervention. So these are the 2 next upcoming events. For home visiting, our family support programs, we are having an in-person conference up in Altoona. The focus is really supporting the home visitors in understanding infant mental health, having some training around trauma-informed care, and again, kind of those resources that home visitors can directly use with families who are experiencing some of those items. Our home visiting programs screen for domestic violence, substance use, and development. So we're trying to cover all of those. The early intervention conference is focusing on inclusion, family engagement. There's an overall support of children in different programs. I apologize, I'm hesitating. It really is focused around that, and also infant mental health, trauma-informed care, which are important in terms of inclusion. In addition, you can go to the next one. Thanks so much. So we are always soliciting feedback from you and our other advisory committees. And so one of the things we've done over the years is scholarships for infant mental health, a course that is operated by University of Pittsburgh, Dr. Robin Gallen, if those are familiar. We have been putting forward scholarships. We were looking at increasing this year to 100. The reason we don't open it up to thousands is because it's important that we have learning communities that support folks doing this work. And so one of the things, again, kind of seeking feedback from this group is there an interest in having more scholarships? And if so, what programs could support that learning community? For instance, we worked with ODP a few years ago for children who were in residential facilities, pediatric residential facilities, and offered those scholarships to those program leads so that they had that opportunity to have that experience. It is a lot of work. It's a if you were paying for it, it's a 3 credit course. So you can see 15 modules, 45 hours of that work. That shows the time period that the course runs, January to September. And again, I'm sorry, I used the wrong word. It's learning circles, again, to support those folks. So one of the things we wanted to ask is, we have tossed around, would we have folks interested in getting more infant mental health background doing this course, but receiving funding the 3 credit hours instead of what we're doing currently is they receive a certification. We're not sure if the folks who would be doing this, so the practitioners, would be interested in having those credit hours funded. And so again, we're looking for some feedback. It's a lot of work, so it is absolutely for early childhood professionals, home visitors, early intervention, our entire early childhood program focused again around those practitioners who work directly with children and families. So I'm putting in the chat our resource account for early intervention for our Bureau. And if folks have an opinion one way or the other, if that would be a way to support folks around learning more about infant mental health, just let us know. And I think that was my last slide. I'll wait if there are any questions. But if folks do email that resource account, please in the subject line put SAC. That's all I have. Thank you guys for letting me take that opportunity.
Thank you, Lisa. Any questions for Lisa can go in the chat. We're going to move on to Lisa Unrath to give us an update on the work of PDG.
Apologies, I couldn't find my unmute. Hi, I'm Lisa Unrath. I am the PDG manager, and I'm here to give you an update. If we could move to the next slide, please. Thank you. So it's $16 million annually. We are in year 2 of the PDG grant, which is the preschool development grant, and we are a renewal grantee, so we are one of 21 grantees. It is for a total of $48 million over 3 years. We started our grant in December 30th, 2022, and the 3 years will be up December 29 of 25. And we are eligible for a no-cost extension if we would need to do that. The monies came to us via the Pennsylvania Department of Education, and then were subgranted to Health Human Services to OCDEL for the work that we are doing. You can see the key 6 points have not changed. We are in the process, and we've completed the first phase of Memo 1 for the needs assessment. We are updating the strategic plan. We are looking to maximize parent and family engagement, supporting the workforce and best practices, program quality improvement, and then we have subgrants with 2 focus. One is rapid response teams on infant early childhood mental health, and the other is for startup grants. Updates on our activities. We were able to hire 3 staff, and they've all begun for the school age childcare mental health consultation. Ruler through Yale has training started on August 7th and will be rolling out into all of the programs since the trainings have begun. And then access to programs met with the Institute State Research for Harrisburg on the work for the startup grants that will come out to the ERCs this fall. Next, please. And there was a presentation, as I said, about the memo on all of the data that came out from the first phase of the needs assessment. That was a data analysis. Now we move into community conversations, contacting different organizations and individuals, and ISRA will be conducting those throughout the fall.
Thanks so much, Lisa.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Lisa on PDG? As we know, it's a public meeting, so we insert a place here to pause for any public participation. And then we are going to move on to SAC member updates. So Andrea, whenever you're ready, I'll stop sharing and you can start.
Great. All right. Go into
There you go.
share. Well, I may not be able to share my screen for some strange reason, but we can send the slides out afterwards. I don't know what my technical problem is, but it just said nothing available to share, but I know there is. So, but anyway, it's my pleasure to give you a little bit of an update and high-level overview of what we're calling our innovation project, Igniting Innovation. And I will tell you the primary objective of this work is to drive new revenue into the early childhood education quality childcare system. I think for so long, you know, I have, you know, and kind of all of us have been doing a really great job of, you know, identifying the need. We certainly have the return on investment. We know the longitudinal benefits, and we certainly in Pennsylvania have made a lot of progress over the last, you know, couple decades. However, it's been slow. And as we know, when we look at teachers' compensations, lack of benefit pages, lack of benefit packages, high levels of turnover, you know, the trouble with retention, we need to think creatively about bringing new revenue into the system. And so over the past, oh my goodness gracious, several months, really we officially kicked off in February. Oh, and I guess if I was really creative, I could have just brought my PowerPoint up to show everybody, but I mean, for me to see at least. But anyway, so we started that. We are working with a consulting firm called Align. And again, when you get the slides, you'll be able to see who those folks are. And then we pulled together a group of diverse stakeholders, about 19 individuals who some have very deep knowledge and expertise in early childhood. Some have deep expertise into other areas that can be related, whether it's technology, whether it is communications and marketing, whether it's philanthropy. And so we really try to get a cross sector of ideas and different people in the room to help us think creatively about ways in which we can generate new revenue for the system. And so we have three main themes that have emerged. The first one is amplifying the benefits of early learning and quality childcare. So as many of you have done for decades and decades, we've been talking to stakeholders about this. But clearly we in Pennsylvania don't have the public will to invest at the level that we need to. So what can we do when we think at kind of the triangle of systems change, right? The public mindset is such a critical part of that. The way a variety of different stakeholders across the Commonwealth are really understanding, I call it the WIFM, like the what's in it for me, and really recognizing that quality early learning and childcare is critically important to everybody. It doesn't matter if you are, you know, a sophomore at Carnegie Mellon, or you're a blue collar worker in Potter County, or you are, you know, C-suite at Comcast. And so really thinking about a way that we can have some concepts and pilot projects around kind of sustained statewide communication, which is also very cool because OCDEL is also working on having some communications and marketing about state-funded programs. And so there is really this overlap of just kind of having multiple messages coming from multiple directions. And as we know, people get their information from a variety of different ways. So whether that's TikTok or a billboard, to be determined. And I guess I should really kind of highlight here that, you know, this is an innovation project. We have a framework in which we're following, but basically the process is informing the process, if you understand what that means. So we're taking the learnings to help us inform what the next steps are going to be. And so that's why I'm kind of sticking to the higher level. The second theme is embedding early learning and quality childcare into Commonwealth plans and priorities. And so one of the things that we all know on this call, like I said, is that quality childcare and early learning is critically important to our economy, our prosperity, our health and well-being of our citizens, of the well-being of people in long-term care, because the people who are caring for them are earning the same wages as childcare providers and they can't afford childcare. And so it's this big circle. And so my request to the Lieutenant Governor and the Governor's office is let's do what we can to really get all of the cabinet officials understanding how really thinking about the intersections of shared objectives can be win-win for everybody. So thinking about, I mean, we certainly talked about a little bit about insurance, right? And I know OCDEL is doing a great job working with that department, but thinking about, you know, the big one is DCED, right? Thinking about how can we think about childcare in the front end? If you're looking to fund community and economic development projects, how do we in the front end include, you know, whether it's tax credits for childcare, financial incentives, including it in the plans on the front end. And so that is a big piece of it. I really want very desperately for all of our, you know, state leaders to really be very conscious about the way that quality childcare and early learning can really be embedded into their own plans and works. And with this, we're just bringing additional dollars in through shared objectives and really existing public dollars. The third kind of broad topic is accelerate financing and fundraising. And I will tell you, this is not the traditional ECE line item ask. We are looking at how do we bring new dollars into the system. Part of that, like I said, could be existing dollars that haven't been necessarily driven effectively towards the childcare field. So some of that could be, you know, think about workforce development, right? We've seen some really cool examples in Philadelphia and other places of the state, whenever workforce development organizations are really clear on what it is the childcare career trajectory can be, that it is, you know, oftentimes for some of those folks as an entry level, it's a job that can lead to a better job, that can lead to a glorious career, right? And so understanding that there's an opportunity for collaboration. So looking at some of those dollars that are already existing, but also thinking about, you know, where can we generate dollars? And this is where like it gets really creative and really fun. But I'm telling you, the lieutenant governor said, think big, think bold. And so as I start digging into things, it is amazing when I am finding that, oh, like, how does that happen when you have kind of a organization at the state network that is getting fees from state funds? So for example, and this is just something that is just a point of reference, but the Children's Trust Fund, right? They get $10 for every marriage and divorce license. Okay, so hey, now their main job is their, child abuse and prevention, which obviously is very aligned to what we're doing, and they're giving grants out. But we think about that like, wow, like where can childcare fit into this? Like, I don't know. We're thinking about like, income tax, your personal income tax forms. Well, imagine if there was some way to raise money from there, whether it's a voluntary checkbox, which we've seen in different like registration forms for organ and tissue donor awareness. Certainly, those aren't necessarily the big bucks, but it all adds up because ultimately, we are not focused on necessarily, we want to bring $25 million into the system, or we want to bring, $50 million. We want to bring hundreds of millions of dollars into the system. I have the privilege of reading the PRRs that are coming through with childcare and pre-K counts, and I know how much money we need. And I think the time is really right to be thinking very creatively on, how can we bring new dollars into the system. And so, like I said, this is definitely a iterative process. And so we will be having in the fall a innovation forum. And basically my tagline is that exploring public-private partnership strategies for economic growth and prosperity. But this is really kind of like, I shouldn't say kind of, as we're going in this process, we're like, this is the commissioner's annual meeting. We typically meet in the fall. Typically, it's been a lot of like recruitment and updates and that, but we don't really have to worry about that now because of the other things that we've implemented into the way that we're supporting the early learning investment commissioners. But this is an opportunity for us and the innovation team to really share the concepts and the themes that we've been working on, having these senior level business leaders really noodle it, like identify what are 1 to 3 strategies, concepts that really resonate with you, as well as the cabinet members. And I know I talked to you this, Shantae, but we're getting the thumbs up that we will have the cabinet officials attend our forum, and it is then this opportunity to like really strengthen the relationships between the state leadership and our commissioners and really think about where are these intersections. We have folks on the commission that do community and economic development, right? Like how cool is that to really have them, talk to Secretary Seeger and say, listen, in my community, we are seeing these opportunities. We know that there's a lot of work in affordable housing, right? So how do we think about childcare in the front end and having, really intentional dialogue around that? And then our goal is to, come out of those ideas with like more refined, concrete ideas, and then have an opportunity to do more, listening sessions, stakeholders refining it. But our goal is to have, several pilot projects that we can launch sooner than later to really see how we can better stabilize the field. So that's and I, my slides aren't going to tell you a whole lot more than that, but that was a lot, and I apologize. I will say my other computer died, so I thought this one was going to work, but it didn't quite. So I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. We'll pause here. We still have 9 minutes left. If anyone has any questions for Andrea. No questions? If there's any other updates from other SAC members, now's a good time. And if there's any members who would like to be on the next agenda to present, please let me know that and I'll make sure. Otherwise,
There was a private question to me in the chat that I wanted to make sure everybody got. Hold on one second. It was trying to find it here. About cells. The question was, will all staff need to be getting their cell like ASAP after September 7th? And the response is in the chat that only people, it'll be after January 1st that staff will need to obtain the cell using the cell system. Any new staff and then anybody else will not need to get it until they are expired. So just so
I think
people
that's
know,
the
it's not
clarification, Ruby, that's really important. We're
Right.
not, that the expectation is not that everybody, because the new system is available,
Right.
everybody who needs to go out and get a new
It
cell.
won't be NSOR all over again, because I think that that's a big fear out there, is that it's going to be a jam-packed system. So the clarity is in the chat. Thank you, Shante.
Also, I just wanted to note, Netta, before we, Lisa is asking for some feedback, and I know folks are super quiet and may have to kind of marinate on the questions that she asked, but we do get a lot of concerns, feedback, comments about what is happening with mental health and supports for mental health and trauma-informed care and et cetera, et cetera. And so this is our opportunity to kind of give some feedback to some coursework and some spaces that we're trying to be thoughtful about. So please, please, please feel free to give Lisa your feedback. I think she gave her email address in the chat, but I know we're asking specifically like, hey, are these scholarships valuable? You know, would they be more valuable if we were giving credits to go along with that opportunity? And we just, you know, we thought this would be a good place to be able to kind of lay that out and get that feedback. Steve, I wouldn't have that off the top of my head. That sounds like something that I would have to go back and get from the team. Thanks, Aaron. That's it for me. Y'all know we could talk about this stuff all day long, so I'll be quiet.
And Lisa, if you're looking for specific feedback, if I can help with a survey to one of the subcommittees, however I can assist, just let me know.
Okay, thanks, Nana.
Sure. All right, last call. Thank you all so much for being here. We'll see you again in November.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.